wrong. And again, I don't know enough. I'm not going to be one of the. I've heard people over the weekend, Tony Stewart's a murderer, maybe, but I don't know enough to make that claim at all. You know, the racers do. People that are involved in that, they know. They can watch that tape and tell you much better than I can. But, you know, I mean, it's easy for me to sum it up this way, but saying, yeah, dude, you should not have gotten out of, and I don't get that. I've seen guys do that a lot. I have never gotten that getting out of your car thing when there are still moving missiles and projectiles going around all over the place in the form of vehicles and stuff, man. And so that was crazy, kind of right there on that aspect of it. Just watching the whole thing and seeing that over the weekend, I'm like, man, you know, you never know. You never know, again, what the intention was. And Tony Stewart, known as, you know, I cannot see. I mean, I definitely can't see it being intentional. But then I watched the video and I go, yeah, but part of me looks like he was trying to teach him a lesson. And then it just went too far the other way. But then maybe that's not the case. Because, again, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I just know that somebody died and it was a shame. And I know the police, they're getting all kinds of other people's trying to find videos. I see that they talked about the darkness and the cell phone video, but trying to get more angles of it so that they can piece this thing together and try to figure out whether there should be any kind of charges or anything in this. I've never seen anything like this. And again, I'm not a big race car guy, so I'm sure somebody out there that is can go, well, what about this? I don't know. This is the one that made the news, so this is the one that I'm talking about here. But again, and if you guys have any more introspect than I do, share it, pass it along. I know I've got some NASCAR listeners out there, even though this wasn't a NASCAR incident. This was on a dirt track too, which again, you know, like, and I know Tony Stewart's known for that. Like, he's known for he'll race around the corner. You know, he's walking to the elevator. Hey, race you to the elevator. You know, he's one of those ultra competitive, likes to race, you know, kind of the love of the game, you know. And like Michael Jordan used to have the deal where he'd play basketball all over the place, all the time. He was allowed to in his contract. But, you know, I don't know. And that's an aspect of racing that goes way back in the day, too. But not much. I can't come to a conclusion. I just said, man, I cannot start the show and not mention this. This was like a crazy scene, crazy video going on there. We'll see what happens if anything else comes out of that. But, I mean, tragic. You use that word, no doubt. No matter how it shakes out that this thing goes down with charges, just tragic. And, you know, there's a family missing a family member all because of this. You know, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt. And that sounds, you know, that's said jokingly a lot. But in that scene, it turns out to be real. Oh, another thing. I'll tell you what. This is a little bit local, but it's hit nationally enough that I think that, and the reason that I was about to go to the break, and I said, no, don't go to the break. That's why it sounded like I was yelling at somebody. I was yelling at myself right there. I said, no, don't go to the break. This is something else that I wanted to get into, you guys. I'll tell you what, you guys nationally that are listening, maybe you're familiar with the case of Steubenville High School here and the couple of teenagers a few years back. And I know I'm pretty familiar with the details of this because I was news anchoring at the time. So I got all the daily testimony of the trial, and I was a big part of covering that. So I know a lot of the details about that. But the two teens who had taken cell phone videos, and there was alcohol and drugs, and there was all the innuendo of he said, she said, and they ended up being convicted of rape. And I mean, the whole town, and it started to get some national traction because Steubenville's known as one of those little football towns. Like you talk about those Texas towns, the Friday Night Lights, the you know, that kind of an atmosphere where football is the, you know, especially high school football, the be all end all, and Steubenville known for having that kind of an atmosphere. And there was all kinds of talk before the trial and stuff, people getting involved and trying to cover things up for these guys because they're football players. And you know what? A lot of that had to do with the coach too. Some people don't realize. Again, I was able to see the testimony every day, but I remember the coach was involved in on the outsides of trying to cover this thing up at the time that it happened. I remember there had been cell phones that were confiscated and messages that were read and retrieved, and several of them inferred that that the coach, Reno Secocia, is how I believe you pronounce it, but that he was, quote unquote, going to take care of the things, and that the players weren't going to deal with consequences. I mean, so there were teenagers and parents texting each other that the coach was involved as well. So I thought, man, then when you follow it up here, both of them were found guilty, the two teenagers involved, and both sent to juvenile facilities. Well, one of them is not only out, Malik Richmond, he's back in school, and he is now back on the football team, and it's starting to spark a lot of debate, and it's starting to spark a lot of discussion locally and nationally. And Coach Secocia, who we just mentioned, said, I feel like he's earned a second chances. We don't do death sentences for juvenile activity, and he's earned a second chance. And while, of course, your first instinct is to go, you're right, you don't want to, but you got to realize that this is something recent. I mean, this is not something that happened 10 years ago, and there's been a big long period of time paid and dues paid and punishment and all of that and apologies. This is in a short time span of going in, doing some time in a juvenile facility, coming out, going back to school. He returned to school, Malik Richmond, back in January. They suspended him from all of the extracurricular activities for the rest of last year. But now, with this year coming back in, he is able to play, and they have decided to allow him to play on the team. And a lot of it reeks of the same things that they were accused of before, in covering it up, in trying to hide it, in trying to protect these kids because of the culture of football and football being so important. And then you hear that, it's the same coach who's bringing him back in is the same one who was accused. And I'm telling you, it's one thing to accuse somebody. It's another thing to have text conversations of people that weren't meant for public discourse, that have things said in them. I mean, it's not like these people were making up these conversations, having imaginary conversations about the coach stepping in and covering up for people and protecting it. The one text message that they quoted in the court said, "I got Reno. He took care of it, and ain't gonna happen even if they take it to court." So a lot of people thought that he should have been gone. There's nearly 150,000 signatures on a petition that was started online to have this coach removed. Instead, it is so funny. I saw the Plain Dealer said there's also an online petition in support of him. That one has less than 1,000 signatures. The one against him has nearly 140,000 signatures. But the one in support of him has 741 signatures. And it clearly, there's some issues in this town. And I agree that nobody should not get a second chance. But this, to me, is not that. This is a short sentence, going in, coming out, being put right back in. You're not just being put back in the environment, right back in the exact same thing. It was after a football game, and come on, man. To me, this was a bad decision. I know you could say, well, what are you going to do? Ban? Yes, that's what you do. He's not allowed to play football. That's very easy. I'm amazed that he was able to return to the same school, but that's another discussion for another day. And now I just got to tell you, and I see you guys in the chat room, I agree. I don't know how that coach was able to keep his job. I can't lie. I lost track of the case a bit after the kids were sentenced. It was a foregone conclusion to me that he was going to lose his job as coach, especially when the testimony came out that he was trying to cover this thing up. I said, okay, well, he's toast, and I never even followed back up. And then I see that he's not only there, but now this is back out there, and that's no good, man. And I got to tell you, I heard a lot of the testimony, all of it, from that case. And while I am in no way absolving anybody from what they did, there was a lot of a feeling of lack of accountability. And there were a lot of parents, this town, they got that football culture. Parents and coaches with that nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I'm telling you, it does these kids an injustice because they grow up with a skewed view of things. And as you see, again, like I said, I'm not in any way trying to blame anybody else for what these kids did, but the culture and the environment of, like I said, nudge and wink, that grows on these kids, and you're doing them an injustice. And And again, it just contributes to these things along with so many other factors as well. And then when you see this, man, I'm telling you, seriously, you can say that a kid deserves a second chance. And if it was my kid, I mean, I would be arguing the same thing. But how in the hell can you tell kids, how can you look at the boys in your high school and talk about sexual assault and abuse and rape and tell all the girls, you guys speak up because we're going to stick up for you. And then you see what happened. A girl spoke up. She got dragged through the mud, through the town. She just got destroyed over the course of proving herself to begin with. Then these kids go away for a little bit. One of them comes back out. And in a matter of no time, less than 2 years later, he's back on the football team, the same football team, same school, same team, same kids, and he's back. And I'm just saying, how can you look at kids with a straight face and then do stuff like that? There's no way. I think that this whole culture that's in these towns like this, and I understand getting into the high school football. I've been to some of those towns down in Texas. It's cool. It's intoxicating. It's a great old school American type thing. You know, you don't see a lot of towns like that, but it creates a bad culture, and I think we're looking at it here in Steubenville. And I cannot believe. I can't believe that he ended up keeping his job, to be totally honest with you. And here you go. I believe this is going to be, it's starting out locally now, but this thing's going to take off nationally as this gets out there. I mean, think about that. Again, how do you look at the kids? How do you look at the kids and say, hey, man, no means no. But if she does say no and you rape her anyway, you can be back on the football team in less than 2 years. Your life will not miss a beat. Her life will be changed forever. Your life will not miss a beat. You just sit out for a little bit, kid. It's like an injury. You're going to sit out for a year. We'll get you off the sidelines and then get you back into the game. That's what it sounds like to me. And I mean, at that case, you have just empowered a whole bunch of young men to perhaps go out there and do some things that they may have at least been worried about the consequences of, because they see that there are no consequences. And you have definitely encouraged some little girls. I shouldn't say little, they're teenage girls, but you have encouraged some girls to keep a secret of some things that have happened to them, because they sure don't want to be like that girl that told the truth, because she spoke up, and look at what happened to her. And then look at what happened to the people that did it to her. I'm telling you, how do you teach kids? Look at this all the way around, you guys. It's just, man, that's messed up, man. And a sketchy coach like this around the kids. I'm glad winning some high school football games means so much to you guys, but there's quaint, old school American, and then there's just stupid. And you're doing a disservice to these kids, these boys, these girls, all of them, all over. I don't even know what it's over. Parents that still live in their high school days. I don't even know what creates that, but that's a bad scene there, most definitely. Not just setting a dangerous precedent legally, Charles in the chat room, not just that, but just think about it. I mean, I have a teenage son, so like I deal with the psychological day-to-day warfare that goes with that. Trust me, there's a son, man, and I know how they think. I was one. We all were. And then now I see one every day. I know how they think. And you can talk all you want. You know, my dad was the king of the do as I say, not as I do. But I see what you do more than I listen to what you say. I'm telling you, man, like, it's just the way it is, man. And this is just such an ugly example. Like I said, how do you sit there and tell these kids no, especially there where they've upped the focus on sexual assault and all of that? And I mean, how? Because if I was a kid, I know my son, his first question when he'd come home would be like, well, how did they say this, and this when this guy did this? And he's already back on the football team. My son's not stupid, and no kids are. Like, what I'm saying is these kids are way brighter than you think they are. And you just taught them one hell of a lesson, and it's not good. It's not good at all. All right, guys, we're going to take a break. I know I got callers on hold. Just sit tight. We're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit about the Indians here. John McMullen from the Sports Network still to come. Dan Wismar, so much more. Don't go anywhere. The Sports Fix is on the air, baby, and we'll be right back.
The Sports Fix, the show that asks the question,
what you talking about, huh? What you talking about, huh? What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, huh? What you talking about? What What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about?
We'll be right back.